Licciardi. Here. Councilman Bourget.
He is on his way.
Participating communities, Town of Coventry, Town of Situate, City of Cranston, City of Warwick, Town of West Greenwich. There is a quorum on record, Council President.
All right, who wants to start? Yes,
Superintendent.
your first official budget.
Yes, so thank you for having us. I'm going to go through the executive summary and just give a brief description of it to open things up for anyone that hasn't had a chance to review it. So for the fiscal year 2023, the wastewater treatment facility is looking to spend a budget of $9,674,558, which is a 1.9% increase from fiscal year 2022. We're going to be proposing a rate increase from $3.55 per 100 cubic foot to $4.25 per 100 cubic foot. The minimum user that gets charged is for 4,000 cubic feet. The increase for the minimum user would go from $142 to $170, or an increase of $28 per year. The average annual ratepayer will see an increase from $213 to $255, which would be an increase of $42 per year. With the increases, we were looking at our debt services, and we're going to propose a decrease of our charges from $135 to $120 per unit, a savings of $15 per year. So the annual minimum user would see a net increase on their yearly bill of $13, and a ratepayer that has 6,000 cubic feet, which is the average for the town, would see an increase of $27 per year. The increase is because of times right now, things are getting more expensive. The cost of doing business is going up. Things like chemicals, specifically one of our chemicals is going up 60% for the year. Things like sludge removal, that's going to be a 10% increase for the year. Also, contributions to the pension, property and liability insurance, severance and buybacks, and petroleum are all going up. Some items we're looking to save on are capital expenses, odor control, health insurance, our UV system, and Kent County water costs. Office manager, do you have any comments?
Not right now, no.
Not at this time.
Just a quick question, you're talking 213 to 255. It don't seem like much, but when you do the math, it's a 19.7% increase to the taxpayer.
Correct.
Why almost 20% increase?
We have not had a rate increase since.
Go ahead, but
Oh,
I'm
go
going to
ahead.
caution you on that.
Okay. Well, office manager, do you want to speak to this?
My understanding is that the last actual rate increase, I believe it was 315 to 355, was 2015. And then the following year, a minimum use charge in 2016 was established of 4,000 cubic feet per as the minimum minimum consumption that a ratepayer would be billed on. So I believe 2016 would be the last rate increase.
So the minimum consumption is what, 213?
Yes.
At that time,
Oh, not the minimum consumption, the average user.
Average user, the minimum
It's
consumption
213.
right now, Council President, is 142. It would go to 170.
so anybody in Sal, maybe you can answer this question. Out of the multifamilies in this town, that includes Royal Mills, any condos, condos had this separate anyway. Royal Mills, Clyde Towers, Robert Street, all seen increases of thousands of percents because they, instead of one feed, they were starting to get billed by units. So 2-family saw a 100% increase, 3-family, 200% increase, 6-family, 600% increase because they got based off 6 users, not one, not water consumption. So ultimately, there was a rather significant increase back in 2016, which was 6 years ago, right? But that was a very high amount of increase. And there were some people up here that that wasn't an increase, that was just a stipulation, but they supported it. But I remember me and Councilman Kenningham, this is going back before Jay was on the council, were opposed to it. And now we're looking at, and I understand you haven't seen an increase, but a 20% increase is pretty hard right now when you see that per unit, multifamily and whatever. So like Royal Mills are going to see a significant increase of 20%. Let's just say their bill is $50,000, which I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. See a $10,000 increase in your bill. That's a lot of money. I'm just throwing it out there as councilman, but that's just me.
I missed your quick calculation. That include the reduction in the debt service, the suggested reduction.
I'm sorry,
That I did not see. I'm going by his 213, 255 number.
the net increase for the person, the rate pay being charged 6,000 cubic feet, if the debt service charges are decreased, the net increase would be $27 per year.
Right.
Per unit. It's not $27 per. You said per household, so that'd be per unit.
It would be per usage bill. So it depending, the debt service charge is charged per unit. But if a two-family, for example, has one water meter, the water consumption is for both sides. So if they're using 6,000 cubic feet, they would see a net increase of approximately $27 a year, because we are looking to reduce the debt service charges based on the fact that some of our bonds are close to being retired and the bond payments are going down, so we can lower those fees.
Those are retired this year or next?
The AWT bond will be retired after
20
fiscal year 24.
24.
So we'll have July and the following July.
So we down to a 13% increase.
What have we saved using the fusion chemicals?
Let's see.
Last I knew, and I missed a few meetings in the winter time when I know that was being calculated. And it might have already been going over. I apologize if it was. But last I remember is the head of the company said it was either $30,000 or $50,000 in savings using their company.
Was that per year? 'Cause I don't believe that would be per year of $50,000.
Well, those
I
are
think
the
that was whole
numbers.
Budget for the year.
That was the numbers that he threw out. It was either 30 or 50. I'm not quite sure which.
I don't remember those numbers being thrown out, but you're probably correct.
So are we saving money using the fusion?
Let's see. Bear with me for one moment.
If I'm wrong, tell me. I mean, Jim, you were here, Jeff,
Oh,
you
that's fair.
mentioned you're
Fair
going to do
question.
calculations and
Mhm.
by the end of the year, and I wasn't here, so.
We actually did do some calculations and there was some saving. It was not anywhere near that. And that would be silly because the cost itself is in the $48,000 a year.
$48,000.
Maybe
per
I'm
year.
wrong. I
Yeah,
can
so
go back to the
those
meeting.
numbers are, those numbers, there's no way we're going to spend $48,000 and save $50,000. That would not
Okay.
make any sense. So I don't believe that's the case. There
Okay.
were some calculations done that were provided
Mhm.
before Tony was here, I believe, that did show there was some savings. And I think if you look through this, and I think what you just told us, that order control actually does have a savings, there's a decrease in the order control
Yes.
costs in this budget. And
We
David,
are, sorry, Councilman, I was trying to find my spot.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
we are projecting coming in under budget for odor control. And forgive me because this goes back before me.
Yeah, that's fine.
The decrease in cost, where was that? And I'm just asking so I can answer your question. Where was that projected to be?
We were at a meeting here, and I had brought up the question, are we saving money using the system or not? And the owner of the company, you were here with, I don't know if you're a part owner or whatever, but I was told we have a savings by using this company. And it was a significant amount. I believe it was 30 or 50. I could be wrong. But it's,
Yeah.
Yeah. We had projected that there was going to be about $26,000 cut from the previous odor control system. So maybe that's where that number came from, as well as a little bit in sludge removal, polymer reductions and energy costs.
so it's 26 plus.
26,000 was the initial it wasn't on top of that. It
Okay.
was, yeah, that was.
So that was the number.
That was maybe where that number
Okay.
came from. And then, I mean, it's, you know, you also, I believe the sprayers haven't been on as much. And there's some chemicals that you guys used for the scrubbers. And that's been reduced as well. So the system is paying for itself.
Okay.
You know, plus more, I would say.
I don't know. I'm not for a rate increase at all. I think with with the money that's come down from the APRA money to use on capital improvements, the fact that do we have an inventory yet?
We do.
Okay.
It'll be presented at the next town
All
council
right,
meeting.
perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I don't think we can keep hitting people. I know we haven't raised rates in a while, and that's for a reason. I think the budget has managed very well during that time. And I really can't get past, I'm sorry, but the admin fees. You know, I understand we have a narrative. Thank you very much for that. But when we have three of our top employees, the manager, the finance director, and the HR director, spending 30, and 20% of their time in your department, that leads me to the question, what are you guys doing? Do you feel that you need these people for the amount of time that they're spending? If you do, that's fine, but
I do feel like it's fair to pay for their services. They do provide us with
do you know, that's
service.
not what I'm asking. Do you need the manager to spend out of his 35 hours a week, 11 hours on the sewer plant? Do you need that assistance for 11 hours is what I'm trying to ask. I'm trying to ask in a nice way.
And I understand. So thank you. I do appreciate that. For me, aside from just paying them for, you know, however many hours per week, I think they provide a service for us. Do I need him that many, the town manager, that many hours per week? No. But if there's an emergency and I do need services, they're there to provide the
It's like
services.
any other
to me.
department, though, that doesn't get charged that. You're paying 380, am I right with the number? 380, 360?
361.
And actually, the
360.
town manager is 20%, I believe, in this.
That's what he said.
But it's
So it's
$361,000 coming out of your budget,
Mhm.
going somewhere. And now you're asking for a rate increase for the people to pay that. I'm sorry. I think we can find a way to cut other places. That's where I stand with it.
So the rate increases that are being projected actually don't even get us to the average usage. And Jeremiah can speak to this. He gave us a discussion at the last meeting. We have not had a rate increase in 6 years. But we've taken out of surplus each of those 6 years. And that's not something that can continue. That's not a good
I agree with
financial.
that.
So this is a way, and it's a minimal way, quite honestly, with the understanding that there will be some further reduction when some of the bonds fall off in September of 23, I believe. So the fact that we're at 343, is that correct? What were we at?
355.
Okay, and when in the package, there was that was sent. I don't know where it is in this book that was fixed, to be honest with you, but of what the average rates are for other facilities, and we are way at the bottom. And again, to continue to take out of surplus is a very slippery road to go down.
And taking out a surplus, is that for capital?
In some cases it was, but no, it was not. And we're very fortunate. I agree with you that we have an ability to address some of the major needs with
Mhm.
American Rescue Funds. I absolutely agree. And to talk about the town manager at 35 hours a week at 20% is 7 hours. I believe that, you know, I know you have a weekly meeting at least, which is good practice. You know, as well as I do, that for a long time, there wasn't enough oversight at the facility. And we had those issues. I mean, we spent some money to correct those issues.
One comment on this chart that you're looking at, though, is I don't know how many of these other communities that are listed here have other communities that pay in as well. We have 4 other communities that pay into this. So that 343 or 355, because this says 343. That's a little misleading because I don't think like East Providence does anybody but East Providence. You know, or Barrington does
So
anybody
what-
but Barrington. And
But
I,
how-
Why is that
so-
misleading?
I just,
Okay.
because there's more people feeding into this from other communities where these are like single communities. So to me, that's one reason why they're so much higher.
Go ahead, you want to speak, John?
It's the population. What you have to look at is the population for each of these communities
When that's
and
what I'm-
their operating cost. East Providence has a treatment plant. It has a collection system similar to West Warwick's. So you have a basic operating cost. So West Warwick has been lowest on the totem pole for a number of years, right, wrong, or indifferent. And it has nothing to do with being a regional community, number of people, so going outside of West Warwick. It's the population that's being serviced. 85% of the population is West Warwick. Okay, and you do have some in Coventry, you do have some in Warwick, and in West Greenwich has a few.
Situate.
Yeah, in Situate, but I don't think anybody in Situate right now. So it isn't related. It's just a unit cost per, you got to look at it this way. It's cost per 1,000 gallons or per 100 cubic feet. That's the relationship. Give you an example. The town of Narragansett, much smaller than this. A user pays $400 regardless of what he uses.
Mhm.
If he uses over that, a specific amount, he pays in addition to that. So a Narragansett user who's a summertime resident, who uses less water than a mom and pop, pays $400. And they only have a small treatment plant, which is 1/10 the size of West Warwick, and a much smaller collection system.
Whereas East Providence has 2 treatment plants.
No, they don't. East Providence has one. East Providence
One in
treat,
Rumford and one in Riverside.
Riverside goes to the Narragansett Bay Commission. It is not East Providence's treatment plant.
That's not their treatment plant?
No, it isn't.
Okay, well. Worked there for a long time and the residents, the people who work there are considered East Providence employees.
They were a long time ago. And then the Narragansett Bay took over what was called the East Providence facility. That was part of it. The Narragansett Bay took that over.
That I do know. We've spent a lot of time there the past few weeks, so.
That's news to me.
And they went to contract ops for the longest time to get rid of all their employees. And then went back and the Narragansett Bay Commission now took it over again with town employees.
But that's one of the things I was saying, because you said it's on population. That's what I was saying. This is a little misleading because it seems to be pulling in more population around us as well as us,
But you're
where
not
most of these
looking,
other ones are on their own.
but you're not looking,
Coventry has their own rate to their tax.
right, what,
We
and
don't set the rate for Coventry. We don't set the rate for East Greenwich. They set their own rates. They bill them and we bill them and they bill the tax.
And that's one of the reasons you want to pull out one of the concepts. I'm not discussing or arguing about the cost or the magnitude of it. But your department heads, your town hall services you don't want that subsidized. You want that to be paid equally for all the users. So the people in Coventry should be paying for those services. What the number is, I'll let the smarter people than me to figure that out. But that's one of the purposes of taking what I call administrative cost and bringing it back into the treatment plant, because you now have your regional partners paying for that, paying for the town manager's time, paying for the finance and the billings and everything else going associated with it. Again, I'm not discussing I'm discussing the principles behind
I have no problem. with that,
transferring that.
Because I did look around and all the other communities do the same thing.
Every community
Right,
does.
every community does the same thing. My issue is kind of along with Jay's is the amount that's being taken. Is it really, fair for the sewer department to pay the town's bills on that side? You know, I have no problem with money coming. I just don't know if it's actually equal, and I don't have an answer one way or the other. You know, if it's appropriate or not appropriate, if it should be higher, should be lower. I don't have an answer on that. I'm still trying to figure that out.
In all the years I've been doing this, and you know, I've been here a lot. I don't have an answer for that either.
Right.
What the actual numbers are. I think that the work that was done to put that together was the most work that has ever been done to justify it. Again, I'm not in the position to vote on the budget, but I want to say a couple of things on the things. When we looked at the budget, one of the things we attempted to do was take a look at, I'll move from the O&M for the residents and move away from that. We've tried to identify some of those expenses like engineering services relating to inspections, relating to sewer reviews that were not being compensated for. It's coming out of the budget. Everybody was being paid for that, but it wasn't being compensated for. In the proposal, there are two items that we're looking at to increase. One is the inspection fees originally, which was done probably 10 or 15 years ago, was $2 a linear foot. It's costing way more than that for the community to inspect those services. So we're proposing that this year is $12 a linear foot. That will cover our construction, so that if the town cannot have their own employees because of staffing, they can hire an engineer to go out and do the inspections. We're finding that we're spending a great deal of time, and it's coming out of the user, what I'll call the user portion of the budget. In addition to that, plan reviews are not being paid for in its entirety by those developers, subdivisions that are coming in. It was $200. It's far more than that with the number of reviews. We're proposing that be increased to $2,000. That's a reason, that's a normal 16-hour type of review for subdivisions. We spend a great deal of time in that review, and we're looking to move it away from the sewers, the residents, and move it into where it's being spent. So there have been efforts to look at these things. We also looked at the expenses for the private pump stations, and we found that we're in a plus side of that, so that's good. We also looked at pretreatment, the charges per industry, and we found that the cost that you pay for pretreatment, along with the analytical costs associated with that, equal the inventory. So again, we did our checks and balances for those, that do not impact the users. I want to ask Tony a question, because I want to go back to what one of David's. When you have a 3-family home and there's one water meter, how are they billed? For usage, not for capital, for usage.
No usage anymore.
For usage, they're billed on the actual water consumption with the 4,000 cubic foot minimum.
Right, but they're not billed 3 times that number. It's only on water consumption. What you're talking,
But 3
EDUs,
EDUs.
correct. Right.
So
The EDUs were there for over 20 years.
Mhm.
That policy has always been there.
So the policy has always been there is, so if I have one water meter, one sewer line coming out my 6-family house, all those pipes are interconnected. Now they get charged 6 EDUs versus 1 EDU. That was implemented in 2016.
No, that was implemented, no, I beg to differ. That was implemented a long time ago. It was by EDU. I'll check.
It was 2016, because me and Kenny were the two that opposed it at the time. It was a vote 3-2. And that's when Bernie Bishop stood up here and convinced the council at that time that, I remember the one individual that called me, elderly lady, her and her son lived in the house.
I will check that.
And her bill went up, the whole EDU, because she went from she had a 2-family, just her and her son, one on each side, no basic, they didn't even use the consumption off the 4,000 prior to it. but then they see an automatic increase of 116. And there's two multifamily owners right behind you that can probably attest in 2016 it happened.
I will check that.
So again, doesn't really matter. It did happen in 2016. That doesn't really impact or have a bearing on what we're talking about in the budget we're looking at tonight.
No, because the 6-unit now would have a reduction of 15 times 6 as opposed to $15.
Right.
Okay,
And I understand that the reduction, but they're gonna see there's an increase before the reduction.
but yes, there is. But you tried to
I'm
balance,
gonna give you $40, Jim. I'm taking back 20. Put it in my,
that's,
that's what's,
yeah, and but what you're trying to do, and I'm
I'm
just,
not disputing the increase. I see we need something. But just a 20% increase,
So we could do-
13 now is pretty high.
So we could do 3 years in a row, or we could do this that has dollar wise a fairly
But
minimal
if I
impact.
agree to a 13% now, and this council changes in November, and they agree to another 13% next year.
Again, a
you
lot,
know,
lots
I'm
of,
just
lots
throwing out
of,
there.
lots of things
You're
could
right. We
happen.
can do a 4, 4, and 4 over 3 years and ease the pain. But how do I know it's not 4, 13, 13? Because I don't know what the expenses are gonna be down. I don't know what the expenses are gonna be down
No,
there.
you don't. We have no idea. We have no idea what expenses with inflation are gonna look like. You're absolutely right. So you can't make that guarantee. But the thinking was, because it really winds up being a net for the average, a $27 a year increase. As opposed to, yeah, could you do 9 one year, 9 the next year, and 9, yeah, you could, but that's sort of like the Chinese water torture, as opposed to doing it, getting it over with and moving on. When we know that some of these, and there were other expenses, yes, the American Rescue Funds are
I don't even want to
huge.
use that for some of it. I want to make sure, because that's gonna run out,
That's exactly
right?
right.
We
But-
can't
but-
depend on that too
No,
much.
but that's going to help us
Get
not
it.
have to have those increases, because you're not going to have the capital costs.
But even so.
But
like-
eventually, those costs are there. I mean, if you look out 10 years, there's $1.5 million
I
that
understand
has to.
cost, but like Councilman Licciardi said, we have rescue funds. I want to avoid as much as that, because once
I agree.
they dry up, they're gonna come back and say, well, we had rescue funds last
Which is,
year.
which is why
and now I
those are
have-
being used not in a structural sense. They are for one-time purposes, and that's how they're being used. And originally, we thought that we weren't going to be able to use those funds for much more than sewer.
I mean, for the 20-year upgrade, that's fine. If it's gonna be 20 years down the road, something, but if this is a 1-year plug-in. that's the
No.
worst
none of,
mistake.
Absolutely
none of
not.
these
No.
projects are
Absolutely not.
1-year plug-in.
No, they're substantial projects that we're using the American Rescue money for,
Correct.
and that can come out of some capital, correct?
Correct. So
Okay,
I
that's my
believe-
point.
Right. So I believe, you can debate the proposed increase. I agree on face value, it's high. That's why we took into consideration reducing some of the debt service, because some of those are tapering off over the next few years. But the end result is we want to set the plant up for success. And the 3 ways of doing that, obviously with more revenue, is to replenish the diminishing savings account, which has happened, to balance out using potentially American Rescue Plan or infrastructure money, and keeping some capital funds flowing into the plant, because obviously we spent a significant amount of money back in 2010 refurbishing after the floods. Now we're 12 years later. So a lot of those things, are life expectancy is diminishing. So we need to be prepared by taking care of ourselves over the next few years, because we're going to have to get into that. And you're right, American Rescue Plan funds are going to dissipate in a couple of years, and we don't want to rely on it. We want to be extremely responsible. So I don't know who said it, but I think, setting ourselves on a path of success, looking at what we want to do over the next 3 years as some debt's coming down, putting ourselves in a position to replenish our savings. We experienced that on the town side to a significant detriment. We don't want it to happen in our enterprise fund. To me, it seemed like a responsible proposal. Again, you can debate the total amount. But I believe a combination of all those factors make it the right thing to do.
Dave, I just
Before we move on,
want,
I'm sorry. Sarah, is there anybody online saying anything? Because I'm hearing that hissing noise.
I'm going to turn it down a little.
No, I just don't know. The last time we had that noise, they couldn't hear us. They couldn't hear us on,
It's an increase right now, though. I mean, everybody's experiencing huge increases in everything. And I really don't feel comfortable in hitting them with the 13% on their sewer on top of it. It's just, if we can avoid going all the way up to 13, I think it's best, because right now gas is through the roof. Inflation today, another 8.1 or whatever it was.
but,
Everything's
I
going
understand.
up.
And I'm not the sewer superintendent, but I want to address two
Seem like it
questions.
right now.
No, I don't want to get that. But the David's comment about you giving you $220 and charging $400, but that was the whole purpose of looking at the budget, was to identify where we could save and give back, or not give back, but reduce the cost. So a 6-family home, if we're reducing it by $15, if you do, it's $90, okay? So now the increase of $45, or what was it?
multifamily seems like they'll save money.
They'll save money. A
Exactly.
multifamily
Right.
will ultimately save money because the EDUs, which impact them greater than the user fees, will be a reduction. So,
And that's why we need to explain that, right? Because
right, I mean, because
it's
it's,
sitting up here, and that's kind of like, the way you just explained it is news to me. Because it's the way it's explained to me.
So what's,
right?
what did you say the average user uses?
6,000 cubic feet.
So let's use that as an example.
Okay.
How much increase would that person save?
Tony
The
Tony
the
has it.
usage rate, Councilman, the usage bill would go from 213 to 255, which is a $42 increase. Then if the debt service charges were decreased, their overall net increase would be $27 per year.
Okay, so $27 total. Total. Okay. Just want to make sure I was hearing that
Yeah,
correctly.
you're right, that there's a balance between the multifamily and all of those tenants and Monsignor DeAngelis and all of those facilities. If they're based by EDUs for the capital, they will get a reduction. And obviously this reduction of $15 per unit, I think will offset. And probably at the next meeting, we could give you an example of the multifamilies. We didn't give it a lot of thought. I apologize for that. We look at the single family homes as the impact is one of the bigger because the other properties are commercial properties. But so that's where the budget and how we formulated it. I mean, to answer your question, Councilman, with increases, you had a 60% increase in chemical cost. Those chemicals you need. So, I mean, you're saying an increase in gas costs. We have vehicles here that are experiencing the same cost. The same cost a homeowner experiences is what we are experiencing.
And I completely understand that. It's just that where can we make sure that we're not spending where we don't need to spend or not pulling in revenue where we should be pulling in revenue? That's what I'm trying to focus on. I'm not saying we shouldn't do an increase at all. Obviously, everything's more expensive and, it was said at the last meeting that, chemicals prices are going up and that's going to be reflected in the budget. And we see that. I'm just saying that if we can figure some stuff out, I got some questions on here after looking at it. Just some of it's my ignorance of not knowing the sewer department. As you probably tell by some of my questions tonight, I'm trying to learn this stuff as I go along as well. So
I think where you can save is to look at those items that you can reduce. The idea, the goal is not to use the reserve. So that's your bottom line.
that should
So
always be the bottom line.
where do you
We
get?
have for the last 6 years.
Where do you go in rates to not touch? Because through the years, we've been touching it, not touch. We get sewer assessments. We get assessments from residential homes that do not impact and have no debt service to pay off. So that money goes into reserve. But over the years, not only have we used that money, but we use reserve money. I think Kristen can talk to that. I think there's, what, about $3 million in reserves?
Yes.
Okay, so that's not a lot, not for a capital of $50,000-$60,000 worth of capital equipment. So that's the goal. To answer your question simply, is as long as you don't touch the reserves and don't touch the assessments, that's the bottom line. Okay,
So you mentioned inspection fees a few minutes ago. Can you say that again, what you were talking
okay.
about?
In the inspection fees, like, for example, you have these developments that go on in town. They have put sewer lines, we call sewer extensions. They require to have inspections. Normally, the staff cannot spend full time out there doing the inspections. We get hired, or another consultant will get hired to do the inspections. But we're finding that these contractors are taking so long to do it at what was the rate? $2 a linear foot. They were using the money in 2 or 3 days and not putting any near production. So what we did is we looked at, okay, these developers are using contractors. They're not like the bigger companies like that do utility work all the time. They're small developers. And what they end up doing is spending a lot more time putting sewers in. So we looked at, okay, if they put 35 feet a day, 50 feet a day, what would that cost for inspections? And that's where we came up with that $2,000, $12 per linear foot, assuming 50 feet a day.
So to clarify that, we were charging the person putting in the subdivision $2. We were paying whatever we had to pay the engineering group, so we were actually, it was coming out of our budget. What we've done is we've increased that from $2 a linear foot to $12 a linear foot to cover those charges. And a calculation was done to make sure that that's the case. So that's borne by the person developing the property, not by the ratepayer.
See, again, that was an
I
idea.
noticed on here under revenues, inspection fees went from $35,000. We be dropping the cost here instead of raising it. And it just doesn't make sense to me. It's
So let me just get this straight.
4037.
I'll use example I have. So Bernadette Street, my sewer line. We put in 500 feet of sewer line.
Right.
They were there for, I think, 9 days.
Okay.
With ledge and whatever else. You obviously had to come out and inspect that every day, but they only paid $1,000.